China has repeatedly threatened to shoot down the plane carrying America's Speaker of the House, third in line for the presidency. And yet no one seems to think this is a big deal. This is one of the weirdest moments in the weirdest presidency in American history.
Yep, that about sums it up brilliantly. We are witnessing what is perhaps the single most bizarre moment in the single most bizarre presidency in our nation's history. And the permanent political class can only fiddle as Rome burns. We're going to take a look at the latest on impeachment Pelosi's provocative visit to Taiwan. We're going to analyze Tucker's take on it, and make sure to stick to the very end of this video when I'll reveal the one thing Tucker missed that's guaranteed to impact us for the foreseeable future. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, coming to you from rural New York on my family vacation for this week. But I am still your Patriot Professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. But make sure to click on that link below as well and save up to 70% on all of Mike Lindell's MyPillow products if you use my special code Turley, and you can get the classic MyPillow, which is normally $69.98 for only $19.98. And that applies to over 200 products in their catalog. So no way, click on that link below. Let's support our fellow patriot, Mike Lindell, as he gives us his best savings ever. All right, so let's dive right in here. As I'm sure you all know by now, the soon-to-be ex-Speaker of the House, Nancy Impeachment Pelosi, is on her way to Taiwan. As of the making of this video, she has yet to touch down in Taipei, but all sources are saying she has every intention to do so, which, given the fact that the People's Republic of China sees Taiwan as its own, has ignited extreme geopolitical instability, and instability highlighted the other night by Tucker Carlson. Take a look.
So Nancy Pelosi goes to Taipei. What's the effect of that? Well, we don't need to guess. The Chinese government has said repeatedly and clearly that if Nancy Pelosi lands in Taiwan, it could trigger a global war. Watch.
A Chinese spokesperson said there would be serious consequences for the visit, over the weekend conducting military drills at sea.
If House Speaker Pelosi insists on visiting Taiwan, China will take resolute and strong measures to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Are they bluffing? It doesn't sound like it, actually. A representative of Chinese state media said this, quote, "If U.S. fighter jets escort Pelosi's plane into Taiwan, it is an invasion. The Chinese army has the right to forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and the U.S. fighter jets, including firing warning shots and making tactical movement of obstruction. If ineffective, then shoot them down."
And that's about as provocative and as inflammatory of a rhetoric that you can get, geopolitically speaking. And so in light of such overt threats, right now as we speak, at least 4 U.S. warships, including the aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan, have been deployed east to Taiwan in response to China's massive military buildup and the rhetorical threats that are coming from Beijing. The Chinese have deployed troops and heavy artillery close to the Taiwan Straits, and of course, Russia is giving its full backing to Beijing in what they're calling a radically provocative move on the United States' part. If this all seems totally and completely surreal, you're not alone. Again, here's Tucker.
The Biden administration is provoking a hot war with China, which by itself would seem to be headline news. But why? It might make a kind of sense if Biden had been a China hawk over the course of his career, if he wasn't taking money from the Chinese government, which he has. But of course, he's the opposite of a China hawk. He is a toady to China. Since the day Biden was elected, he has helped the Chinese government in ways that no American president has ever even contemplated. A partial list. The administration helped cover up the origins of COVID, even after it became very clear that this global pandemic, which wrecked the American economy, was created by the Chinese military. But we can't mention that because it's racist. Then the White House shut down a counter-espionage program designed to stop Chinese spying, which is endemic in the United States. Then Biden dropped tariffs against Chinese goods. Then he refused to do anything to move critical manufacturing back to the United States. And at the same time, he's literally selling our strategic oil reserves to China in the middle of a domestic energy crisis. And by the way, handing our entire energy grid over to the government of China. And then, to top it off, today, the Pentagon spokesman, John Kirby, who acts as the White House spokesman, all of a sudden, for some reason, said this, quote, "We do not support Taiwan independence." When was the last time a White House said that? No, they don't say that. Now they are saying it. We don't think Taiwan's its own country. Okay. So on every level, meaningfully on the policy levels that matter, Biden has been more pro-China than any president, and yet he seems to want a war with China now.
Now, once again, Tucker just nailed it there, in my view. Why? What possible rationale is there for the single most pro-China administration, seemingly out of nowhere, to suddenly want to provoke China into possibly starting World War III? What is it with this administration that likes to play chicken with nuclear powers? And perhaps you're asking, where are the Republicans in all of this? Well, as you may have guessed, they're 100% behind Pelosi on this one. Newt Gingrich is all over Fox, you know, Rupert Murdoch's controlled opposition media. He's all over Fox imploring Pelosi to go to Taiwan. In fact, he's going a step further. If China were to carry out its threat to down Pelosi's plane, Gingrich is all for starting World War III. And the Mike Pence brigade over at National Review, you know, the guys who just sit around and do absolutely nothing but write and talk all day, beating up on the Patriot candidates who are actually willing to fight on our behalf. The editors over there are all in with Pelosi. Is it any wonder they don't fight? In fact, Jim Garrity is actually sounding more like an MSNBC anchor, claiming that Pelosi's bravely standing up to the bullies in Beijing. I kid you not. This is what passes as conservative media, National Review. They become nothing more than a parody of repulsiveness. Does anyone have to remind Garrity that we are the ones who are confused on Taiwan, not China? For right or for wrong, China at the very least is unequivocally clearer on their relationship to Taiwan. Taiwan is a breakaway region of the People's Republic of China, and that's that. But what's our position towards Taiwan? Well, since the Carter administration, ours has been one of so-called strategic ambiguity. In fact, our policy is so ambiguous, Biden doesn't actually know what it is. So, of course, as Tucker asked, why any of this is happening right now is anyone's guess. The sheer size and scope of the Russian and Chinese militaries have rendered it impossible for the U.S. military to fight two wars at once. So why on earth is Pelosi provoking, antagonizing China while the United States is currently trying to fight a proxy war with Russia via Ukraine? Well, it's dumbfounding to say the least. Here's Tucker's take.
This does not make any sense at all. In fact, it only makes sense if the Biden White House is intentionally trying to weaken and destroy the United States. There's no other logical explanation for what we're seeing now. And in fact, the template is very familiar. What's happening in China looks very much like what happened in Ukraine early this year. The administration sends the least capable possible emissary to a flashpoint in a faraway part of the world in order to provoke a violent response. Then it was Kamala Harris, who was an international joke, the last person you would send to negotiate any kind of peaceful settlement to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But they sent her anyway. She exacerbated it, and they got what they wanted, which was an invasion of Ukraine and a war with Russia, which is what they wanted. Now they're sending Nancy Pelosi. And not to be mean, but like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi is senile. Don't believe it? You probably don't see her speak very often. We're going to treat you. Here's Nancy Pelosi's explanation for why she is going to Taiwan.
The president earlier in his term, talked about a strong emphasis on the Asian Pacific. He has visited there, the Vice President has visited there, the Secretary of Commerce and others, and we want the Congress of the United States to be part of that initiative. Of course, as a West Coast person, we see the Pacific as that's our home. We're part of that as well. That is not to diminish the importance of our transatlantic relationships as well, but I'm very excited. Should we go to the countries that you'll be hearing about along the way?
She's excited. She's going to assemble a slideshow. We're going to meet in the gym later and see the pictures she's taking. Because it turns out, as a West Coast person, Nancy Pelosi is very much that. Taiwan has always been on her bucket list. So many nights she stared across San Francisco Bay and wondered what it's like over there in Taipei. So for Nancy Pelosi, as she just told you, this is a dream come true. Next year she's going to Disney World. This year, Taipei. This is lunacy. Nancy Pelosi clearly, you just saw the tape, has no understanding of what she is doing or what might happen if she does it. No one wants to say it out loud, but the truth is she can't know. Because like Kamala Harris, she has never even been in a bar fight. She has no understanding of violence or its consequences. And there are consequences, including the potential deaths of millions of people. This is exactly the wrong time, the craziest possible time, to send an 82-year-old narcissist to Taiwan. The U.S. has never been less ready for war, particularly for war with China.
So much for National Review's take, huh? Nancy Pelosi isn't standing up to the bullies. This octogenarian doesn't even know where she is half the time. One thing I think Tucker is not considering here in his take on this, the Biden administration deliberately trying to weaken America. Well, that certainly is highly plausible given the amount of people in the Biden administration that utterly despise and detest this nation. I think, too, that Tucker has to consider the Republican support in all of this, like we're seeing with Gingrich and the Pence puppets over at National Review. They're not interested in destroying America, and yet they're all in on this absurdity. So here I think we have to recognize that our political elite on both sides of the aisle, right? They are the uniparty after all, right? The duopoly. Unfortunately, they're both living in the past. They're living as if the world of Ronald Reagan was still the operative order around the globe, and they don't see that a very different world is rising, a world centered on what scholars call civilization states. Now, this is where we're seeing the ancient myths and traditions and archaic rituals that form the foundation of the great ancient global civilizations reawakening, places like Neo-Orthodox Russia and Hindu nationalist India and Neo-Ottoman aspirations of Turkey, and yes, the renewed Confucian identity in China. I mean, these are states that are not so interested in taking over the world like globalists are, interestingly. They're more interested in taking over a world, a common cultural world, where the civilization state forms the core of the civilizational center. This is China's claim, as it were, on Taiwan. Again, right or wrong, okay? China is defending their civilizational sphere, and they see the United States trying to impose a more globalist, anti-cultural, imperialist order. Our political elite may have convinced themselves that they're defending democracy and freedom, but more and more populations around the world see them as doing nothing more than defending a modern version of Western colonization. It's looking increasingly clear that our permanent political class is going to eventually find this out, but let us all pray that we all don't find this out the hard way. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on CNN asking Wyoming voters if they support Liz Cheney. You are going to love the answers they heard. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.